Hey guys, it's your host, Bailey Cartwright. Welcome to the Stronger Scars podcast, where I invite others to dive deep into the ups and downs of physical and mental scars. Hello everyone, welcome back to this week's episode of the Stronger Scars podcast. Today I'm joined with Leigh Hullett, and she was actually one of the nutritionists at Notre Dame while I was there. So I got to know her pretty well, and I think she's going to bring a lot of knowledge to us. So Leigh, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me. Excited to be here.
So actually, Leigh was at Notre Dame, obviously, when I was there, but now she has upgraded in life, and she is what's your official title?
Team dietitian.
Team dietitian.
Yeah.
So she works at the Indianapolis Colts, so super cool. And yeah, I'm sure you're very proud of yourself, but that's a pretty cool achievement.
Thank you. I know it's fun, like being here with you, thinking back to all of our memories. Like, I guess I was at Notre Dame for what, 5.5 years, but felt like 15.
Yeah.
So we spent a lot of quality time together, and now, yeah, I got a really lucky opportunity where I was given a chance here, and so I just finished my first season with the Colts. So kind of now we're in the off season, which is great, kind of revamping, prepping for this up and coming season. So yeah.
All right. Well, I kind of want to start from the beginning because I think like being in the field of like nutrition is just like so big and so needed, but I feel like in a lot of places it's lacked. So what made you want to become a nutritionist in the beginning?
Yeah. Great question. I think a lot of things interested me. I think one thing that's unique about nutrition is everybody eats, right? So everybody has an opinion on food or has the internet to look up the latest fad or trend, right? So I'll start with that. But I kind of like really dove into like nutrition at a young age, maybe around fourth grade, because we found out like my grandpa, my uncle, my mom all had celiac disease. So think essentially like gluten allergy. So then our family, we all were tested. And so I have the gene, so I have a gluten allergy. So I just remember this was before gluten-free options were a thing, or you could go to a restaurant and they would have it labeled on the menu. So I just have this memory of at snack time where some of the kids are eating goldfish and I'm eating this like weird power bar, and I'm like, why do I have to do this? Like traumatizing for a child. But no, I think that kind of shaped like understanding how food impacts your body, not just from like a physical looking standpoint. I wasn't thinking about that. I'm grateful that as a fourth grader, but like internally, organs, like in like your health in general. So then fast forward, I played sports, like I could just kind of eat food to like exist, but I didn't really understand then how eating could fuel me as an athlete, right? Went to college, I went to IU, I studied, I was like, okay, I'm gonna pursue this full on. I got a degree in dietetics. Then I went on to more schooling, and you do a whole supervised practice of supervised hours where you're doing anything in the clinical setting and community food service. And then I specialized in sports nutrition. So with that, I knew I wanted to understand and like gain knowledge in nutrition, working with those at a healthy level. Not to say that I couldn't be impactful in a hospital, but I wanted to utilize food and my knowledge to help people like succeed in what they're doing. So I got an internship at Notre Dame, and I kind of worked my way all the way up there. So started as an intern and then ended as the director, which is really amazing. But all that to say, I think some people, and I'm sure many people listening to this podcast understand, but there's a difference between dietitian and nutritionist, right? Like as a dietitian, I went to school, sat for my boards, right? Did all of that, but anyone could claim themselves to be as a nutritionist. So that's why I urge all of you that are listening to this, that what you see on social media or what someone is portraying to you, maybe it's great knowledge, right? But take it with a grain of salt, because they could deem themselves as some expert, but they're not technically legally allowed to provide that medical nutrition therapy or knowledge. So
Interesting. Okay, so when we're like scrolling on TikTok and it's like
Yeah,
advice from a nutritionist, we want to actually focus on like somebody who has that certification of a dietitian, correct?
correct. And I'm guess I'm old, so I don't have TikTok, but I know, and maybe I need to get on it. But I guess it shows up on Instagram and stuff.
Mhm,
And that can get a little like gray,
mhm,
because some people maybe as a dietitian call themselves nutritionists, and I'm not trying to bash what they're doing. I just think like you can make something look a specific way, as we know on social media. And with food, we see what works for someone might not work. What works for me might not work for you, right? And I don't know your backstory or well, I do know your backstory, but Joe Schmo, I don't know their
Right.
backstory, right? So I can't speak to why this is working for them.
Right. Well, while we're on the topic of social media, we were kind of talking before we hit record, but kind of I'm just curious your perspective of like we were kind of talking about the like what I eat in a days, and we see this
Yeah,
a lot. Like so many of the people I watch on YouTube and stuff, like they dedicate a whole video to what I eat in a day. And then
yeah,
honestly, it makes me think, well, crap, like I ate too much today because this person who looks
right.
like how I want to look ate less than me. So, what's kind of your take on all that?
Yeah, that's a great point. And I can say like I've seen those like on Instagram, and even me as like a professional, I'm like, oh wow, that's what they do. And then I'm like, Leigh, this
Yeah.
is a skewed view. So as I mentioned to you, I get a little weary with those
Mhm.
videos. They can be triggering for someone, right? We don't know how that impacts them. But also, like I said, our individual needs as humans, from a body composition, whether you have more muscle, whether you're a little bit more lean, or you have more fat mass, right? All of that impacts your daily caloric needs as a human, just for your vital functions to survive. And oftentimes those videos, what they're showing in that are the basic calories to exist, right? So I think that that's something just to be mindful of just maybe you get a great recipe idea from that, but know that you don't need to, or I would not encourage you to just track your macros and your calories based off that video because it worked for that individual.
Mhm.
Another thing to understand in terms, and when we're talking about like calories burned,
Mhm.
right? When we follow our Apple watches
Mhm.
or your My Fitness Pal, God forbid, right? Like they're underfeeding you. Yeah, they're
Yeah.
underfeeding you. And like your watch isn't accounting for your daily caloric needs, slash it might your workouts are just going off of this watch. So all this to say, when you're lifting, for example, you're building muscle, and your muscle needs to break down and then repair, and that takes energy. So you're burning energy, aka calories, post lift,
Mhm.
but your watch doesn't show that. So
Mhm.
that is like another indicator too. Recovery is so important. What you're putting in your body post exercise is important. And just because your watch says that you didn't burn, I'm making this number up, but 500 calories that you would in a run, it's effective, and it's still um causing energy depletion.
Mhm.
If that
On
makes
the
sense. I've gone
topic
down a rabbit hole, but I think that's
No, no, it's good, and, like, I knew that, like, having you on here would just be very informational to people because, I mean, I had the resources right in front of me, and to be honest, I couldn't even tell you half these things because, like, you
yeah,
when it's not applicable to your own life in that certain time, like, things go in one ear and out the other. But speaking of the recovery thing, one thing I wanted to bring up, and, like, I've been honest about this, I feel like in college, a lot of teams struggle with the recovery aspect because for instance, I know we were always told to grab a shake out of the fridge,
yeah,
and I think that on certain teams and, like, whatever the environment is in the locker room, a lot of times we would not grab the shake because we were like,
right.
"There's too many calories in this." But I
Yeah,
think that's so important to, like, reiterate to people, like, "No, like, that is the time when your body really needs those calories."
yeah, it's a really good point, and I know, like, I saw that all the time. I'd be back there in the fuel station, I'd be like, "Come on, get your muscle from." No, but I think part of it's different too. I'll take two stances on this. One, I'll relate it to your time there. You guys were elite college athletes, right? Your schedules were so rigorous. Oftentimes, you were up at 6, maybe you're doing a run, like an early morning practice, going to class, then you're going all day. Maybe you don't have time for lunch because your schedule is so rigorous, and then you're getting into the training room, right? So there's often times where those feeding windows were missed. So we are really trying to hone in, like, this is a point when you are here where you can get nutrients and calories into your body to support you. This is when you need it. Let's say, for example, does that make sense?
Yeah, no, I think that's
It's
great.
still very, very important, right? Your protein and carbohydrates post training. But let's say you're a working individual now and you're exercising before work, and you tend to always eat breakfast before work. I could advise you and say, okay, if you're gonna go post workout straight to breakfast, shower, and then go to work, maybe a shake isn't necessarily what you need at that time, because you are recovering by getting your breakfast.
Gotcha.
Depends on the breakfast that you're eating, but I would say that counts as a recovery window if you're utilizing it post.
Okay. What's your take on, like, because I personally, like, have grown to love protein shakes. Like, they're easy, they're quick, you can put it in a smoothie, make it really good. So I feel like I know the answer to this, but eating a protein shake when you're not working out, like, that's fine, right? Because you still need the protein.
Correct. And I think what's also amazing about a protein shake, there's different protein powders. We could go on a whole rant about this, whether it's just a whey protein powder, meaning it's protein and maybe 1 to 2 grams of carbohydrates, right? Or you could get like a full, like a protein shake that is like a premier protein and it has protein and carbs and maybe some fat. And so that would be more filling for you. But what's great, circling back to your point, is if you have a blender or something, you can build up your smoothies. So then you're adding in maybe a base of a milk and then, or water, and then you add fruit. You could add in spinach. You can't even taste it in your smoothie and you're getting some micronutrients, right? Then you could add a nut butter and chia seeds for your healthy fat, and then maybe cinnamon to sweeten it a little bit. So there's ways to bulk it up where, like, let's say you are someone where you don't have time to eat lunch because your schedule's so busy, you can make it in the morning and have it on the go and supplement it that way.
Okay, well, let's kind of back it up a little bit. I'm kind of just curious, like, for the everyday listener who's an athlete and is kind of just like, I don't know what I'm supposed to be eating. Like, is it 3 meals a day? Is it 2 big meals a day? Like, I know everyone's kind of different, but what is, like, the gold standard?
Yes. Great question. I would say I don't know if I have a one specific answer to this. I have found what works for a lot of people is doing 3 meals, and I can speak about the meals with it, and maybe a snack in between the meal, or like if you're an early dinner person, a snack before bed. So how I counsel people, I won't say as like a football player, but it's just a normal human or maybe an active human. When you're building your meals, you think of a plate. We're going back to the basics, people. First is your carbohydrates, right? We hear carbs. We live in a world now where people are afraid of carbs, or they're doing keto, meaning your body isn't burning carbs for energy. You're tapping into ketosis, which equals you're burning fat stores, but that could be a whole separate podcast that we won't get to. But so carbohydrates, think body's number 1 source of energy, like gasoline in a car. Next is protein. Protein obviously helps you rebuild and repair muscle tissue, can help with like satiation, so keeping you fuller longer, etc. And then I always encourage, like I say, color, right? So fruits and vegetables, while they're not necessarily always calorically dense, they're full of micronutrients that support you holistically. Think decreasing inflammation, boosting immunity, all of that. And then you can also tap into the healthy fats, and fats can help with organ function, hormone function, decreasing inflammation, supporting your brain. So protein, carb, color, healthy fat at your meals. So in terms of your activity level, right, and how you're thinking about building your plate, the more activity you have, you increase your carbohydrates. The less activity you have, not to get rid of them, but it can be less on your plate, and then you boost the protein color piece.
Okay, I was gonna say, I always thought it was like more activity, more protein.
Yeah.
Carbs.
Yeah. And depending on your body weight and genetics, you will increase your protein, but definitely carbohydrates, because your body's burning through those for energy.
what are some good carbohydrates? Because like obviously my brain goes to bread. Like what
Yeah.
else can I eat?
I'll go like a breakfast to dinner as I go label
Okay.
these out, right? Oatmeal, love an oatmeal, making overnight oats,
Yep.
English muffins, breakfast potatoes. A bagel would fall into that category. Maybe you make like a Kodiak pancake, rice, potatoes, sweet potatoes, pasta, quinoa, um, gosh, toast,
That's a lot. That's more. I feel like yeah, I guess
beans.
my brain just segments it to not to be like a boring category, but I love all
Yeah.
that stuff.
Like people sleep on potatoes. Potatoes
Yeah.
are so nutrient dense, they're so versatile. Like you've got sweet potatoes, you got regular potatoes. You can make a air fried sweet potato fry, or you can roast it in the oven with some olive oil and seasoning, you know? So I think we just get nervous, and when we hear that word, if we're triggered by that, some people are, right? So it's just like kind of reframing the way you think about it is really powerful in my opinion.
What about, I've always wondered, like, if I'm in the grocery store
Mhm.
and let's say sweet potato fries, you mentioned that. Like, is there a difference in me picking up, like, we go to Whole Foods and we always
Yeah.
get the Whole Foods bag of frozen
Yep.
sweet potato fries.
Yep.
Is that
Um,
different from me making my own from a sweet potato?
I would say yes, because oftentimes I'm sure you maybe get like the Alexia brand. I'm trying to think of what it is, but
Mm,
it depends on the oil that they're using.
okay.
However, theirs aren't already, some of them aren't fried, but when you bake them at your house or you're putting in the air fryer, it's not getting flash fried.
Mm,
So it's fine in moderation, right? But if you're baking it yourself, I'd say that's a little bit more.
yeah. I know. We've been trying, like, we've been eating very healthy lately, but then we get like in these spells where it's like we want fast food, we want crumble cookies,
Oh
and
yeah.
you know?
I'm all about balance, so like that's what I preach to all of the guys and even like my coworkers is because if we live, I believe this, I won't speak for everyone, but if we live in a life of restriction, it ebbs and flows, and then it doesn't become a lifestyle. I'm an advocate, and I really try to promote how do I make how I'm fueling and like nourishing my body a lifestyle rather than a chore or a diet, so to
Right.
speak. So like navigating what works for you and what works for you and Nick now, right? And I think that is really, really powerful. And by like you can have that cookie, eat your cookie, but what else are you eating to support your body? So it's like, okay, I'm also gonna make sure I'm having like a nice chicken burger or something else. So I'm getting that protein hit so that your body is nourished and satisfied, but also you're not just relying on the cookie to fill you up, because it's going to take a lot of cookies to fill you up,
Right.
or like a simple sugar rather than a nice protein and complex carb with that. Does that
Where
make
do
sense?
you Yeah, that's very helpful. Where do you get like we're in a recipe rut. I feel like I need like
Yes.
info.
Oh, I'm always looking for recipe inspiration. Sometimes Instagram honestly has some good
Yeah.
recipes. I recently have bought like some cookbooks. I'm like, we're going back to the basics. I've been working with our chefs to like with different cookbooks. So if I'll share some ones that I like.
Yes.
And then even the hard thing is when you're looking at a recipe on the internet, it's like a novel, you're reading someo's life story and then you're just trying to get to the recipe.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Well, I don't know if you remember, but I was vegan for a lot of my time at Notre Dame.
I do remember that. Have you
And no,
left that
so
then?
I was vegetarian for like a few years, and then this year I was like I need more. So I started eating meat again.
Wow, and how do you feel?
I feel better, and like my body like one feels better, but I've always been somebody who's like struggle with like getting super toned and stuff. And
Mhm.
obviously like I know that's not everything, but I'm finally like my work in the gym is paying off, and I've never had that before. So it's definitely been beneficial.
That's amazing. I love that you found that works for you. It's that mental barrier, like where you think that you shouldn't be eating the meat, and then here you are.
Yeah.
Crushed.
Hey guys, we're going to take a quick break from today's episode to talk about our sponsor. Looking for a fun, retro take on fitness? 8-Bit Nutrition takes the nostalgia of video games and brings them to the gym. Packed with protein and low in calories, 8-Bit is perfect for those trying to bulk up or those trying to trim down. 8-Bit's plant-based formula will help you level up your fitness. Alright guys, today's episode obviously all about nutrition. I thought this was such a great episode just to kind of get information that is valuable and that is actual factual information. I know on the internet there's just kind of stuff out there anywhere you can find stuff and you don't actually know if you can believe it, but nutrition is a huge part of my life, and this protein powder is so good. I'm telling you guys, like, I wouldn't come on here and tell you it's good if I didn't honestly think it was. It's plant-based, it's low in calories, it tastes amazing, and honestly, we've been loving it. So we have a discount code for you guys. You can use the code SCARS10 for 10% off your purchase at checkout. Again, it's SCARS, all caps, 10 at checkout. I'll link the website below for you guys so you guys can go and check it out. Level up your lifestyle, play together. Let's get back to the episode.
Okay, so the majority of what I want to talk about, obviously, injury podcasts, nutrition relates to everybody, but I feel like it was definitely something that I lacked during my injury. And I was talking to Nick today, and we were both like, we were talking about recording with you, and I said, I wonder if I took it more seriously, if things would have been different. And I obviously, you can't change it now, but so what is kind of your take on injured athletes and fueling their body? Because obviously there's a lot going on and they have to put in extra work in the kitchen as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first of all, I think that you did everything that you could. Like,
I tried my best.
yes, you definitely did. So I hope you give yourself more grace. I saw you put in the work. But I work a lot with our injured guys here, and then my previous athletes. I think I'll speak to post-op, right? Your body, when post-surgery, is going through a traumatic situation in a high state of stress, that it's actually oftentimes going through a state where it's burning because it's trying to recover, right? So, and if you're using crutches or getting around like that way, that's more energy expenditure, aka more calories burned. You just don't think about it, right? So what you're putting into your body when it's this state of stress, I think it's very important. So post-op, like, I give it a few days for them, like, get your life organized. Oftentimes you don't have an appetite, you're on heavy pain meds, so you can't like get a lot down, right? But I always think, like, when I'm doing like a pre-surgery consult, I'm like, okay, things when you're out of surgery, right? Things to try to avoid for the first month, just to like make sure that you're doing everything you can to support you, is like super fried foods, right? Those promote inflammation. We want to try to alleviate inflammation in your body. So fried foods, like from a fried chicken sandwich to French fries to even like your pastries, which are high in like the saturated fats that aren't necessarily like those fats that we want to heal your body with. Donuts, Danish, and this is not to bash on these things, like, live your life, eat these. I'm just saying immediately try to avoid them. Alcohol's not doing anything to support your body, and God forbid you drink too much and you're kind of off kilter and your equilibrium's off, you could injure yourself again, right? So that's the honest truth. I think people need to hear that. And then like hot dogs, things like that. So like super things that you would think about that could impact you, that you just want to try to avoid right away. And then I have a whole list. I'll have to share my packet with you sometime of like foods to consume and why, like, a certain vegetable has this micronutrient that supports your healing. But we really promote lean proteins. I think one thing I teach I would teach you guys is less legs, more lean. So like a bean, egg, and then you go fish, chicken, turkey, pork, you know what I'm saying? Gotcha. So the less legs on the animal, the leaner the protein. So really hit those lean proteins to support recovery. Adequate complex carbohydrates, because your body is in a state of stress and burning, and then plenty of fruits and vegetables, because they're fibrous. When you're on a heavy painkiller, you can get constipated, so you want to try to alleviate that with fibrous foods, and then lots of micronutrients that hit those like fruits and vegetables. But then we can, as I continue to rant, we could talk and tap into the supplement piece to it, which can get kind of like sticky. Supplements are marketed really hard, and some are more sketchy than others. So if you're an athlete and maybe you're in like a collegiate athlete or you're in the pros, like always go NSF for sport because it's third party tested. It doesn't contain any banned substance that could show up on a drug test and trigger you and have you not eligible for playing, right? We wouldn't want that. But let's say you're post ACL, right? You have a whole ligament repaired in your body. We always do collagen prehab or pre-training because that is going to help with tendon and ligament support. Can also help with like hair, skin, and nails,
Yeah.
right? But a little beauty. But collagen is really one we hit hard. And then anything, I'm not trying to be a doctor here, I'm just throwing a few things out here. Like bone breaks, calcium and vitamin D, right? Vitamin D helps with the absorption of calcium, and calcium can help with like bone strength and formation. And then there's a whole other slew that you could go down, but just things to think about and research. And if you are going through this, reach out to your dietitian, reach out to your team physician and be like, what else can I do to support me in my healing process? Food first approach, what you put into your body that way, you can't outwork that, right? Into your body is important. And then a supplement is exactly what the word says, supplemental to everything else that you're doing.
So the supplements is something that I'm trying to currently get into, and I'm curious, like, what are like the best starting supplements, like prebiotic, probiotic, like what should like the average person be taking on a daily basis?
Great question. And I can't say for sure. What I'd always encourage first is get your labs drawn. If you have access to see a physician, get your labs drawn, learn more about your body. Like we said, it's not just our physical appearance, what's going on internally. You can get like a CBC, so a complete blood count, right? Ask for your ferritin, especially if you're a female, like learn where your iron stores are. Are you anemic, right? Like all of that plays a role. It can play a role in your physical capabilities, right? Are you super fatigued, bruising easily, and can't get through a soccer practice, right? Like maybe your iron is low and you have a history of like heavy menstrual cycles, right? So all of these kind of play a role. So check your ferritin, guys too. And then I would definitely do like a vitamin D panel, a lipid panel, and then maybe just like a metabolic panel so you can kind of see where you are and start from there, and your doctor can guide you in that capacity. I personally am an advocate of a probiotic. I think it's live, like billions of bacteria going into your body, and it's feeding your gut.
Mm-hmm.
So what's so powerful about that is so much goes on in your gut, your immune system. There's a huge gut to brain connection, so supporting you that way, and so that can help you holistically too. So do you take one now?
Yeah, you'd be so proud of me. So
Yay.
but okay, so the issue is like I don't know if I love the brand I'm taking right now. I'm taking the Garden of Life program. It's like
I haven't had that one. Seed is a really good one, and then
literally I almost just signed up for the monthly subscription. Is it good?
Oh yeah, you should be like, can we do a collaboration?
Oh yeah,
podcast.
Okay, and I also do the Cocoa June yogurt every day.
Yeah,
it's live probiotic.
Exactly what I was going to say. What foods that you eat? Think yogurt, cottage cheese, kimchi, right? Sauerkraut all have probiotics in them too. So if you're someone that start there. If you don't want to take the pill, try by ingesting it, and that's powerful. Kombucha, right? All of those things.
Oh, that's very helpful information.
Yeah, you could look into like a multivitamin. I think we live in Indiana where we don't see the sun. We're all vitamin D deficient. But like I said, always check with your doctor first before. And get
what's a good brand for a multivitamin?
There's a brand that we use here right now, or just I've used in the past, is called Clean Athlete, KLEAN, and it's a good NSF for sport one. But Garden of Life actually has one. There's so many that you go.
There's so many, yeah. Okay, good to know. All right, back to the injury topic. So I want to talk a little bit about, like, you mentioned briefly, like the period right after surgery. And I feel like it's really great and all to like make this plan and want to go about it. But then like, I know
Yes.
how I felt right after surgery. I didn't want anyone to like I didn't ever struggle with an eating disorder, and I talked about that before in here, but I've always been
Yeah.
like subconsciously like thinking about it more than I would like.
Yep.
And that was a time definitely where I was like, I don't want to eat. No one can tell me what to eat. Like I went through the pamphlet with you guys. I
You're
didn't
like, I'm
care.
not active right now to the level that I
Right.
was. Yep.
Right. So how like if I'm that person and I'm telling you this now, if I was like one of your athletes, what would you tell me? Like what advice would you give me to try to get out of that?
I'd say I hear you and I totally understand where you're coming from, and you have every right to these feelings, right? And it might take time to navigate this because this is a new wave. Like you have to think about this as a different training phase for you, right?
Mhm.
You're not in your in-season phase, you're not in summer season where you're getting crushed and running all the time, right? This is just a different training season. So how can we put food into our body to support you to get you back to that other season? So I'd say let's start small. You don't need to have 3 gigantic meals a day. Let's start with a couple small frequent meals. Really snack and prioritize proteins, right? Not saying don't hit your carbohydrates and your color like we talked about, but hit your protein so that as an athlete you're not atrophying and you're not losing that muscle that you work so hard to keep on, right? So this will help you just maintain. And then while your carbohydrates are reduced, I'd encourage you to try to sprinkle them in at a meal, like, or add it in at a snack. And then what I'd also tell you to do is find like an accountability buddy. Doesn't have to be your parent, doesn't have to be your significant other, someone that you know that you won't take this out on them, but will hold you accountable to make sure that you're taking care of yourself. Maybe it's a friend, maybe it's an aunt, maybe it's a dietitian, but not someone that's going to be food police, but that has your highest good in mind to support you and just make sure that you're staying on track.
Yeah.
And one other thing that I would also say is like, oftentimes because your energy expenditure is lower, you might forget to eat or not have an appetite. So maybe you set a friendly reminder on your phone, like you do for class, like snack, water, lunch, you know what I mean? So like little things like that
Yeah.
like work for you, and give yourself grace. If there's one day where you're like, I just don't want to eat, like what can you sip on to like get some calories in your body to support you?
Mhm. Yeah, it was always like that was probably obviously there's other realms of like what affected my mental health during my injuries,
Yeah.
but like a big one was just like I remember even going on like fall break when I was hurt and we would go out to dinner and I would be like, are like people gonna look at me differently because I want like I'm hungry because like it's been a long
Yeah.
day, but like I'm hurt, not burning calories like them, so I thought, and then I'm gonna sit here and down my meal, you know? It's like that subconscious feeling that you kind of have when you're injured.
Yeah, and I'm glad you're talking about this. So I hope that anyone that's injured or listening to this, like your feelings are validated.
Mhm.
And it's like you're trying to figure it out too. This is a new wave of life for you if you've never been injured before. So remember that and just work to slowly chip at it and figure it out for yourself, because Bailey and I can test like your body needs these nourishment, like these nutrients to like help you heal. And it can seem scary and different and overwhelming, but it will support you to get you on track.
I think too, like resources, like if you have them in front of
Yeah.
you and you can go and talk to your nutritionist or dietitian, like just go and do it. Like they might tell you something you may not like. You don't have to put it into your life, but like at least you have the option and you have somebody who knows more about the topic that can help you.
Yeah, exactly. It's so true.
Okay, so kind of switching gears a little bit. What's your
Okay.
take on caffeine and coffee?
Love caffeine. It's one of the most widely, aside from like creatine, researched supplements, if you will, right?
Mhm.
There's still a lot of research coming out. I know that caffeine can impact people in different ways, but from a performance standpoint, so many benefits, right? It's a performance enhancing drug essentially. Like if you're in college, if you're consuming more than 500 milligrams, it equals a stimulant. So
Oh.
it shows how powerful that is. I think that when it comes to sleep, it's very impactful. Sleep is so important for your recovery. So I always try to encourage people. It's not always feasible, like depending on your sleep cycle and circadian rhythm, maybe try to avoid drinking copious amounts of caffeine or just caffeine in general. I say after 12, but some people say after 2 because of the half-life it can stay in your system. So like, let's say Bailey, you're like, I can drink coffee at 8 p.m. and I can go to bed right away and it doesn't impact me, right? Do you feel that way?
I do that. Yes, I do
Yeah.
that.
So while that is the case, if you're understanding your sleep cycles and seeing how your breathing or your brainwaves work, it still may be impacting you and might not be getting as deep or powerful sleep as you would because the caffeine is still in your body. So maybe you still wake up and you're like, well, I got 8 hours of sleep, but I still feel fatigued. It could be because it was hindering some of your sleep cycle.
Interesting. So what is that? What's the milligram into cup ratio? Like how many cups is that? Like 1?
1 milligram is, or sorry, 1 cup of coffee, like a normal size cup of coffee, is equal to 95 milligrams of caffeine.
Okay.
So like 100 milligrams.
Okay.
So like if you're drinking a Celsius, that's 200 milligrams. That's 2 cups of coffee. Some of those like Lit, or I'm trying to think of like, I don't even know what
I'm not
Monster.
into
Those hit
those.
like 350. Like you'll see people in the gym dry scooping like C4, that they can get up to 400 milligrams. That being said, per body weight, the amount of milligrams that you can intake varies, but you can have a threshold window of how much your body can handle.
Is pre-workout bad for you?
I knew this question was going to come up, but I don't love that question. It's not bad for you, but it can be abused.
I'll
It can
cut
be
that out.
really a really powerful thing. Depends on what you're getting, especially if you're an NCAA athlete. Like some pre-workouts
really
are very sketchy, right? Some pre-workouts make your skin tingle, and like there's like beta alanine or whatever that's making you feel that way. But if it's done the right way, that's not necessarily bad. But like I always try to say, if you can, like I'll be want to admit it, I'll drink Celsius sometimes before I work out, but I will try to do coffee or espresso in the natural caffeine form too. And if you've never experimented with it and you're like, oh, I have the biggest game of my life, let me just take pre-workout. Don't do that.
No.
Practice before you, or you're gonna have. I've had people like have panic attacks or like break out, hearts beating so fast because they're not used to that. So just be mindful of that, you know.
The next thing that I'm very curious your take on is the boom of plant milks, because I drink almond oat, but then I hear that there's a lot of gum and fillers in it.
Yeah.
So what's your kind of take on that?
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't like drink milk, to be honest, but like I'll put almond milk or something in my cereal, but I will also do like a 2% if I have to. Like if you can consume dairy products, don't completely cut them out. They're more protein rich, they're more full of vitamin D and calcium and all of the different nutrients in that sense. But like an oat milk is different than an almond milk. Oat milk, it's maybe a little bit more fiber. However, you're not getting the vitamin D and maybe slight protein that you'd be getting from an almond milk or even like a soy milk. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So like if you're trying to just have a cute latte, like you can put the almond milk in. But if you're I mean the oat milk. But if you're doing like a smoothie, or you're trying to supplement, you're not drinking dairy products, like I would go more almond or soy.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah.
I just I don't know. I feel like I get kind of grossed out by whole milk and 2% now, and that's why
I totally understand where you're coming from, and like totally respect that. Live your life. I don't really buy that at the grocery store either, but I know a lot of people that do, and I encourage it.
Yeah. Okay. So kind of talk a little bit about what exactly it is that you're doing now.
Yeah. So I'm the dietitian. So I work for the Indianapolis Colts, which is a NFL team. So I essentially help fuel our players optimally. So I wear a lot of hats around here. I have a really great support system that I work with. So I work really closely with our strength coaches and our director of sports performance and our athletic training staff, our sports medicine staff, from the doctors to athletic trainers to physical therapists, to really collaborate. So like all of those entities play a role together to support our professional athletes. But then I also work very closely with, we have chefs here on site. So in season, the guys will get 3 meals a day here because they're here all day from breakfast to dinner. So I work with them to build out menus and build our players' meal plans that they follow based off their weight goals or their position or whether they're a return to play guy. So I do a lot of that. So which is like working directly with our players, obviously, and then working to make sure that the menus that we serve our athletes are pristine to help them perform at the highest level. And then I also work really closely with our operations staff here and coaching staff, but operations because there's a lot of logistics that go into this, from especially in season when it comes to traveling. So every hotel, every airplane, every stadium, we have meals and snacks. So everything that goes on at those, I'm there. So I kind of feel like an event planner sometimes. I'm planning a wedding every weekend at a hotel and a stadium. But yeah, that's like the very broad idea of what I do. But when it comes to hydration testing or hydration protocols, I do that with the team and with our athletic trainers. Yeah.
So is it like, or is what they eat super regulated, or is it like you guys can do what you want, but we recommend this?
I'd say a little bit of both. Like this is their job. So
Right.
a lot of them are really bought into it and really listen to what I have to say and ask questions. And maybe they have, like, in the off season right now, I'm working with their chefs back home, like with different guys, like building out meal plans, making sure that they have the food to support them. So, but they all know, and you know this stuff, like I'm all about balance. Like I don't want to restrict, like you need to have foods that spark joy in your life too. So I'm all about an advocate of keeping it in line, but also enjoying those foods that maybe don't fall into that all the time, like in your life.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, what's here is very kind of regulated. So it's, if they're gonna eat it, it's good.
Yeah, I imagine that they're well taken care of.
Yes.
So how are you doing with that? Like, I just feel like, is that not a lot of pressure? Like, like you're feeding some of our country's best athletes,
Yeah, I definitely feel pressure because, like I said, everyone has an opinion about food. So I get feedback about it and I want them to enjoy the food. I'm not cooking it, but I'm advocating for it and helping plan for it. But it is a big deal. Like I try not to always think about that. I don't know if it's because I've been doing it for some time where I like don't always let that get to me. But like if we have a guy that is a high paying athlete and they need to lose weight or gain weight, like I take that very seriously. So I feel like I'm supported here by all the people that I work with, that it feels like a joint effort and it's not just all riding on me, right? Clearly it's not like I'm bottom of the totem pole, but like, yeah, it's a support system for sure.
Yeah. No, I think that's awesome. I mean, I'm sure like it's very rewarding too when you see them make their goals, and like they're, like you said, you have athletes who are buying into like what you're telling them, asking questions.
Yeah.
And that's really rewarding.
Or when they send a picture of like a meal that they made, or like, like they're just normal humans that want to understand and be their best. And I'm just really grateful and lucky to be a small part of it,
Yeah. Well, I don't think I have any other questions. I hope you know that I have taken, like, I know earlier I said like it was like a stressful time for me, like dealing with my injury and then like nutrition on top of that. But I miss those protein balls. I really miss the
I
protein
love
balls.
those. I know.
The shake, it was like the green shake.
Your green shake, you and Nick all the time.
What it was like, I literally need that recipe because I dream about that shake.
Yes, I will send it to you.
I don't know if it was the protein or what, but it was so good.
We did coconut water, banana, mango, spinach, chia seed, maybe a little honey, protein powder, collagen. I think that was it. Maybe we sometimes added a little almond butter, for a
Maybe it's
little.
like you guys always had like a yellow collagen. That's like legit collagen.
So we used to make our own before we could actually distribute the peptides of it. But yes, we would like make Jello shots essentially.
Yes.
Yes. And we would mix those in. Yep, exactly.
Yeah, because I have a powder and it's disgusting. I don't like it.
Not the same. You got to mix it with something.
Interesting. Okay, I'm actually gonna ask you for the recipe later because it was really good.
I'll send it to you.
Also, I loved it then was the tart cherry juice.
Yep.
Love
Good
that.
for recovery, decreasing inflammation, natural melatonin before bed, everyone.
Okay, well, I think that's all I have unless you have anything that you wanted to talk about.
Well, I hope I answered your questions and I like made sense, but if anyone has questions, like go through Bailey, I'm happy to answer them. And just remember, like, food is a journey. Like, give yourself grace, listen to what works for your body and try new things and see where it takes you.
Yeah. Well, thank you for coming on.
Hey, thanks for having me, Bailey. So good to see you.